Hey, what's up, y'all? It's D, about to react to this vid by J Dick. It's titled, How Good Was Prince Actually? Yeah, how good was he really? We hear about things. We were not around during his prime and his rise. So, yeah, break down his accolades. I want to know. I hear he's good. And of course, I know some Prince songs. It's not like I'm super duper familiar with his catalog, though, in every single song on every album. But, see, I don't even know how many albums he has. But, you know, I know the really, really popular ones, but it's like you don't really know unless you were there around that time, you know? There's a difference to hear about it and to be there. So, yeah, we will see how he breaks this down. Let's watch.
150 million records sold, 7 Grammys, an Oscar, over 600 songs released in his lifetime,
Damn.
and around 8,000 more sitting in a vault.
See, yeah, no. I can name a few. When Doves Cry.
In Minnesota.
I'm sure I know more, but I can't think off the top of my head. But yeah, that's all I got.
Wrote, produced, and performed pretty much everything himself. And at just 19 years old,
I know I'm missing
he walked into Warner Brothers.
But 600, I don't even know. I can't even name 6. But even if you played them for me, I'm pretty sure I might be able to recognize closer to 10. But 600 is crazy.
And in full creative control over his career. Something that most artists don't even get 20 years in the business. So in this video, I had to set the purple ambiance because we're gonna find out just how good Prince really was. What he was great at, what he wasn't, and how a kid from Minnesota became one of the most influential artists in history.
I've never spoken about this before, but I was born epileptic. And I used to have seizures when I was young.
Oh.
My mother told me one day I walked into her and said, Mom, I'm not going to be sick anymore. And she said, why? And I said, because an angel told me so.
There's a conspiracy theory in the music industry that Prince had mystical or magic powers. Some celebrities have said that he could float in the air, and some said that he could see things before they happen. But one thing was for sure. He was a gifted child prodigy. With a jazz pianist for a father and a jazz singer for a mother, music was in his destiny. And by the time he was a teenager, he taught himself piano, bass, guitar, and the drums. And he taught himself everything by ear. In high school, he joined his cousin's band called Grand Central. They played local clubs around Minneapolis and built a small following. And even back then, Prince was the one that was writing most of the songs and arranging everything. By 1976, he had recorded a demo tape in the basement. A businessman named Owen Husney heard it and signed him to a management deal. And he took the tape to LA. 3 major labels, Warner Brother, A&M, and Columbia, they all wanted to sign Prince. Columbia Records actually offered more money, but Warner was willing to give him the full creative control that he wanted. So Prince's biggest strength was clear from day one. He didn't need anybody else in the room. His weakness, though, was experience. He was a teenager with no idea how the industry actually worked, and that would come back to bite him later in one of the biggest fights any artist ever had with a record label. First, he actually had to make a hit. Prince's first album, For You, came out in 1978. The album sold about 150,000 copies, and the lead single, Soft and Wet, only hit number 92 on the Hot 100. But it cracked the top 20 on the R&B chart.
They sold so many more records back in the day, and I know we're in a different, era with streaming and all of that, but it's crazy. Whenever I hear their numbers, I'll be like, damn, like it's way, way more than what artists typically get now.
Which was enough to keep Warner Brothers interested. A year later, he dropped his self-titled album, Prince, which is the one that most people remember. The lead single, I Wanna Be Your Lover, hit number 11 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B chart. Plus, that album has one of my personal favorite Prince songs, Sexy Dancer. It went platinum, and suddenly Warner Brothers knew they had something. But his next 2 albums took a hard left turn. See, Dirty Mind came out in 1980, and it was pretty much what it sounds like. The songs were all about sex, all different kinds of sex. The radio stations, they wouldn't touch it, but the critics loved it. Rolling Stone called it one of the best albums of the year, and it only sold 500,000 copies, but it established Prince as something new. He was provocative, and he wasn't apologizing for it. Then in 1981 came Controversy, and the song had him questioning his own identity. He was playing with race, sexuality, religion. It was a risky move, but the album still went platinum. But now it's 1982, one of the best years in music. Michael Jackson drops Thriller, Toto comes out with Africa, Foreigner with Waiting for a Girl Like You, and what does Prince do?
know, and I do this a lot with with artists and songs, especially the older school ones. Like, I will know them. I'll think I don't know them, but once you play them, I'm like, oh wait, I do know this. Because of course my mom, my aunts, my grandma, like they played their shit, obviously. But by name, I'm like,
Prince releases 1999, the album where everything clicked for him. The title track hit number 12 on the Hot 100. Little Red Corvette hit number 6.
I think I know that song.
Delirious hit number 8. The album went quadruple platinum. But the most important thing 1999 did for him was it got him on MTV. See, before 99, MTV had barely played any black artists. MJ had just broken through with Billie Jean, and Prince came right behind him with Little Red Corvette. One of the first videos by a black artist to get heavy rotation.
That's on that Dream.
So his biggest strength during this era was the fact that he refused to follow trends. Disco was dying, and pop was moving towards a cleaner sound. But Prince was out here mixing funk, rock, new wave, R&B, something that people hadn't really heard before. The Minneapolis sound, which actually became its own genre in itself. His weakness, though, was the fact that his image was pushing him away from radio. The leather and the lingerie and all the sexual lyrics, it was holding him back from crossing over fully. That was about to change.
He's too racy.
By 1983, Prince wasn't just trying to make another album. He wanted to have a bigger cultural impact than that. Michael Jackson's Thriller video was about to drop in December. But at the same time, Prince was working on an actual feature film, starring himself in the lead role. Warner Brothers thought he was out of his mind. He had never acted before, and he had no screenplay. But Prince had already started writing songs for it. He had already cast people, and they were rehearsing already. So Warner Brothers went along with it. Purple Rain did over $70 million at the box office on just a $7 million budget, and it won Prince an Oscar for the best original song score. The success of the Purple Rain movie, it paved the way for future artists to be trusted with a feature film. If you think about Ice Cube with Friday or Rob Zombie with his horror movies. Now, the movie was cool. It became a cult classic, but Purple Rain, the album, has become one of the best albums of all time. It sold 25 million copies worldwide, spent 6 months at #1 on the Billboard 200, and produced 2 #1 singles, When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy. Plus, you had Purple Rain, the song, which hit #2. And the tour was just as big, which grossed over $30 million. So, by the end of 1984, Prince was reaching icon status. He was in the same conversation as people like Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Bruce Springsteen. But he was the only one that was doing it without a team of producers and songwriters behind him. But something weird started happening. You got 2 black child prodigies, right? One can dance his ass off, and the other can play every instrument. So the media tried to paint them as rivals. But Prince and Michael, they served 2 different audiences. Prince was the edgy rock star, and Michael was universal pop. But in 1985, Michael was ready to be edgy himself. So Prince got a call from Quincy Jones.
The first line of that song was your buddy's mother. Now I said, who gonna sing that to whom? Cause you sure ain't singing it to me. And I sure ain't singing it to you. So right there we got a problem.
Now, the only drawback to this era was that the success of Purple Rain was so big that it kind of put Prince in a box. He spent the rest of his career being compared to it, which is probably why what he did next surprised everybody. Most artists, after a 25 million selling album, would try to make something similar. Purple Rain 2. Prince did the opposite. He dropped the biggest hit song from his set list and started making albums that had almost nothing in common with it. His next album came out in 1985 called Around the World in a Day. And it was a psychedelic pop record with sitars, flutes, and spiritual lyrics. And it still went double platinum and produced 2 top 10 hits, Raspberry Beret and Pop Life. But it sold way less than Purple Rain. Then a year later, he did it again with Parade. Now, this one was a soundtrack to his second movie, Under the Cherry Moon, which unfortunately flopped and got multiple Razzie Awards. But the album produced Kiss, which became Prince's 3rd #1 single on the Hot 100. So Prince started to build up this pattern of releasing all of these albums that
Is that the song that was in Pretty Woman?
So Warner Brothers was starting to get nervous. Here comes 1987 with Sign of the Times. And this is actually the one that most fans will tell you is his masterpiece. It was a double album with 16 songs, and the genres were all over the place in a good way. You had rock, funk, gospel, and the album went platinum, but only in the US, which for Prince was still a disappointment. But Rolling Stone named it the best album of 1987, and decades later, critics still rank it in the top 100 albums of all time. So between 1985 and 1989, the resume was still incredible because he released 6 studio albums and they all went platinum or better. And he had multiple artists under his umbrella that he was doing music for. People like Sheila E., The Time, Vanity 6, and his protege Apollonia.
I really liked your song too.
Prince got to a point where he basically had this whole music universe that all revolved around him. His weakness during this era, though, was he was putting out too much music. It got to a point where Warner Brothers, they couldn't keep up and they told him to take a year off. He had all of these songs that were filling up the vault and the label didn't want to release them, which would later become a problem, which leads us to the darkest period of Prince's career. By 1992, Prince had already released 14 albums and he still had more material sitting on the shelf. Dang. So when he signed a new contract with Warner, the deal came with a catch. They wanted him to slow down. They wanted an album every couple of years, not 3 albums every single year. But Prince saw it as the label trying to tell him that he couldn't create. And if we're being honest, Prince had developed a bit of a God complex, and he wouldn't be held down. So on his 35th birthday, Prince announced that he was changing his name. He would no longer go by Prince. From now on, he'd be known as The Symbol. The media called him the artist formerly known as Prince, and he started showing up in public with the word slave written on his cheek. Now, this is the part of Prince's career that a lot of people misunderstood at the time. It looked crazy, but what Prince was actually fighting for is something the entire industry is still fighting for today. Who owns the music that an artist makes? See, when an artist signs to a major label, the label usually owns the master recordings and the brand associated with those recordings. The artist writes the songs, they record them, they perform them, but the label owns the physical tapes and the files. If the artist wants to release those songs later, they have to get the label's permission. If the label wants to sit on the songs forever, they can. By 1996, Prince fulfilled his contract and walked away from Warner. He released a 3-hour album called Emancipation on his own label, and it went platinum. It was impressive because it was mostly sold through a mail order hotline and had almost no promotion. But this is where the commercial decline started. See, without major label marketing, Prince was on his own. He had to do the distribution, the promotion, the touring, and as good as Prince was at making music, running a label is a whole different animal. In '98, he released Crystal Ball, another album only available by mail order, but this time, the website kept crashing. People who paid for the album waited months to get it, and some fans never got it at all. Damn. It was pretty much a disaster. He realized going completely independent wasn't working, so for the next album, Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, he signed with Arista. But there was a problem, because now mainstream excitement isn't the same that it used to be for a new Prince album. By the early 2000s, things were pretty quiet for Prince. He was still touring and still releasing music, but commercially, he was starting to fall off the map. But in 2004, he got a second win, and he released Musicology. It was his first real mainstream album in years. Debuted at number 3 on Billboard 200, and then he went on the Musicology tour, which was the highest grossing tour of 2004. In the same year, he got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Prince was finally getting the flowers he deserved. He spent years being underestimated and trying to be recognized as a true artist instead of just the wild Purple Rain guy.
Been having to deal with a lot of things, getting teased a lot in school. And, early in my career, I tried to compensate for that by being as flashy as I could and as noisy as I could.
So his strength during this era was the fact that he didn't quit. Most artists who get out of a major label deal, they usually don't make it back. But Prince, he stayed creative, he kept experimenting, and he kept releasing music on his own terms. His weakness, though, was the execution. the mail order disasters and the streaming service that didn't get major attention. He had the right ideas about the future of music, but he didn't have the infrastructure to actually pull it off. But with the fact that he was so resourceful, and now you got the technology age coming with the 2010s, his best days were ahead of him. Fortunately, so was the end. In 2007, Prince put on one of the best performances of his lifetime, the Super Bowl halftime show, which some people consider the greatest Super Bowl halftime performance of all time.
Really?
And if you didn't believe the Prince having superpowers theory before, this is the show that might convince you. During his performance of Purple Rain, it actually started raining. Now, he didn't levitate or predict the future, but this moment is still considered one of the most iconic live moments in music history. And just like the rain, it seemed like everything was happening at the perfect time for Prince. He made peace with Warner Brothers. He signed a deal to get his masters back. He was still producing new hit records, and he was enjoying himself putting on small, intimate concerts. But in 2016, at one of those concerts in Minneapolis, he said something disturbing.
He seemed great. He seemed totally fine, energetic.
It just strikes me that what you're describing does not sound like a man on death's door.
I certainly did not get that impression when I was there. He spoke for a couple more minutes and he said, wait a few days before you waste any prayers.
On April 21st, 2016, Prince was found passed away at his home in Minnesota.
Damn.
Now, originally, people thought it was related to his flu-like symptoms that he was having weeks before, but it turned out that he was taking painkillers that were laced with fentanyl. Now, whether it was accidental or something darker, it's still a mystery. But what happened after his death became its own disaster. See, Prince died without a will, so the estate spent years in court. Siblings sued each other, and Paisley Park got turned into a museum. And Prince's vault of music started getting released. Now, obviously, as fans, we want to hear the released tracks, but it's still sad that he didn't get to release it on his own terms like he always wanted to. So Prince's final strength was his completeness as an artist. By the end of his life, he had done it all. The movies, the Super Bowl, guitar solos, the reinventions. There's not a category in pop music that Prince didn't dominate at some point. His main weakness, looking back, if you want to call it that, is the fact that he couldn't slow down and he couldn't retire. And he had this insane work ethic that kept him going until the day he died. Sometimes your weakness and your strength is the same quality. And I don't think he would have wanted it any other way. So overall, Prince has one of the most complete catalogs in music. And the fact that he has hits across multiple genres, and the fact that he's known as one of the greatest live performers of all time. And he changed how every artist after him thought about owning their own work. Prince was never going to be the straight and narrow, clean pop artist, but he didn't want to be. He wanted to be different. And above that, he wanted to be the best.
Come on, Joker.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, this was really interesting. I didn't know a lot of this because, like I said, I'm not super duper familiar with him. But yeah, it's wild that he released so much music. 600 songs is crazy. Crazy. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.